sword here to knight you, but congratulations on 1,000 hours of work.
I didn't know it had been that many.
How many thousands of hours do you have flying?
29.
See, that just makes 30 now. Very nice. Thank you.
Nice.
Now, if you'd been here at noon, there would have been a 4-star or a 7-star given to you.
Yeah.
I'm a little easier.
This is just fine. I always wanted to be a Commodore.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That I only do it one time a week. I'll never get museum burnout. And I enjoy the tours. I really do. Especially when people are interested. And I try to make them interested. Because if they're not, I'll make up something to make them.
Like now? Just give us just a short story.
A short story.
Tell us about some incident that you have flying that thing behind you.
Props. Those are steel props. They didn't put the Dural on this model. Hollow steel props, and in order to de-ice the props, like all airplanes had to have those days, they put heated blankets inside the props.
Wow.
They could just turn on the switch and it would heat the blankets, heat the props. And they didn't de-ice, they anti-iced. So it was great. However, with so much centrifugal force in so many hours, the bonding on the blankets would start to get and used alcohol like they had for years on everything. Never had any more prop problems. And then they had to fix the rear bearings on the 4360 engine, because being 4 banks of 7, the drive shaft, which was controlled, would start to whip slightly, and it would destroy the rear bearing, and then you lost your engine, and that would ruin your afternoon. But practically put a stronger bearing on, and we had that same engine on the guppies, and never had a problem.
Okay, you've used a couple of terms, though, I bet most people don't know this. Anybody know what feathers mean?
No.
Well, that's when the prop goes like this, and it straighten with the air, and then it won't turn. Because if you've got an engine prop, and that prop keeps windmilling, even though it's not being driven, it's a drag, a real big drag, especially with a prop that size, if it's an outboard. The most critical engine on the airplane, on any prop airplane, is number 1. And
Which is?
which is the outboard left-hand engine. Now, inboard engines are not bad, but the outboard engines are.
And so is it 1, 2, 3, 4? Or is it 1, 2, 3, 4?
I had a problem back in 1954 on a DC-4 when I had number 3 engine had a generator problem. If you have a generator problem and it starts to seize up, it's made so that the shaft on the generator would shear. The problem. But on my airplane, it didn't shear, and it created a friction fire. And it burned so brightly that it burned through the firewall and lit my wing on fire. So I had to put it down at the bean field in Oklahoma with 82 people on board. And before we landed, the fire was burning so bright that it burned the engine off the airplane. And then it was a little hard to control. Civil Aeronautics Board. They came to investigate. And one of those guys on the board just knew it was me that caused that I hadn't feathered that engine, and that's what caused it to tear off of the airplane. Well, I thought they were going to put me in jail. But the head of the committee, little guy, and I remember his name was Bankhead. And they got a Jeep the next day, and they drove out following the parts until they got to the engine. It was 9 miles from where we landed. So when they came back to the hotel that night, they all came in, and this one guy that was trying to get to me, he was kind of in the background, and Bankhead said, "Well, Captain, we found your engine." And I said, "And how was the prop?" And he says, "Feathered nicely." And that guy left, and I never saw him again.
So you see, our hangar talks can be almost any place. And we learn something every time.
We do.
And incidentally, I was named by the Air Transport Association that year as Pilot of the Year.
Landing in Oklahoma cornfields almost like landing in the Hudson River. Actually, it's probably harder.
Well, when we touched down, the right gear collapsed.
Oh, so you put the gear down?
Yeah, we put the gear down. The co-pilot, he didn't like that. He said, "You know, when you're in an emergency, you're supposed to belly it in." I said, "Put the gear down, we may be able to save the airplane."
Wow.
And so we landed in nice contact, felt the nose come down, and then it started to lean. It started to lean, and I couldn't keep it up. That wingtip hit the ground because it tore all the landing gear out from the fire. And the wingtip hit the ground and spun us around about 180 degrees, and then people could just step out of the airplane.
Oh my
The gear was gone.
It only took the one gear off?
Just took the one where the fire was. And that swung us around. And the next day when we took a look, we were exactly 20 feet away from a culvert that was 12 feet deep.
So how'd they get the airplane out?
Well, they didn't, because it was so badly destroyed by the fire. And there was no fire department. But they did save the left center section. And as luck would have it, Delta had an airplane that had been run into by a forklift in Tokyo and destroyed the left center section. So the company sold the left center section. That airplane flew again.
So we go to Oklahoma, we'll still find a fuselage someplace in the Indian reservation.
It's waiting for Ken to go in.
Well, I think they might have made ashtrays.